Well, welcome to the Futurist Rant. This is Tracy Armstrong. So glad to have you here today again. We have gone all around the world in our spectrum of communication. Today, we're going to dig deep on your relationship with one another, your relationship as a husband and wife, your sex life. We're going to talk about it all today here on the Futurist Rant. We have Tony and Alisa De Lorenzo, and we are going to talk about your life. Yes, the 6 pillars that make you successful in every relationship. I say every relationship. When we talk about marriage, but I'm going to see if I can squeeze a little bit in there for singles. I want you to get ready and expect something big and something good to happen for you. Hello, we have Tony and Alisa. We're so excited to have you here. Welcome to the Futurist Rant. You guys are some of the funnest people that I've encountered. We went out to lunch and we had so much fun together. And that was our first introduction. We went out to lunch, hung out. We were at a conference, and you started to peel back all of the stuff that you do with helping marriage. But at the time, you were heavy and going in your podcast. I think you were top then and you're top now. What does it mean to be top podcaster, especially around marriage, sex, and all those other things that people don't like to talk about?
First off, thanks for having us, Tracy.
Yeah.
Man, I love that video. Got me all jazzed up. I'm like, yeah, let's go. We're going to bring it here today. Let's go.
I can feel the energy. I'm like, let's do it.
What does it mean to be the top marriage podcast? It means that we have been podcasting since January 2010 to a worldwide audience. We have around 60,000 odd listeners, and we get anywhere between 250 to 300,000 downloads a month around the world. And we just continue to speak into people's lives, marriages. And we've been doing that every single week since January 2010. As of this recording, I think we have around 720 episodes currently available. So we just keep putting them out there in different areas and different ways.
So how did you guys get started? Go ahead, Alisa.
No, I was just going to say, being the top marriage podcast, it's really a responsibility.
Yep.
Right. That week in and week out, we come to the one family. That's what we call our audience. And we speak into helping them achieve breakthrough in their marriage. Mm-hmm. Right. The show isn't about Tony and I. It's about equipping, the couples that tune in and week out to have the tools and strategies that they need to create the marriage that they desire.
Was this birthed out of a need? Was it birthed out of a vision? How did it come to you that you started the One Extraordinary Marriage podcast? How did it happen?
So at year 11, we're going to just go back just a little bit.
There's a story there.
Because if we don't give context, then it just sounds like, they just started and cool. Actually, in 2011, Alisa and I came up to this point in our marriage for the second time, actually looking at divorce. Mm-hmm. And at the time we had a 5 and a 2-year-old. Yeah. And we happened to be watching a TV segment, a news segment about some friends, kids, they were playing beach tennis. Well, the segment after that were these 2 couples who had done sex challenges. Mm-hmm. And that sort of piqued my interest because we weren't really having a lot of sex in our marriage at that time. If anything, our marriage was pretty distant. There were a lot of cracks in our pillars of intimacy. And I remember looking at Alisa and in my head going, we're about to lead a small group study at our church. We're going to be talking about the Song of Solomon. We're going to be talking about what sexual intimacy looks like for Christian marriages. And I remember looking at Alisa going, okay, this is going to be an 8-week study. And off the top of my head, as quickly as I could think, I'm going, Alisa, what if we do a 60-day sex challenge?
And as quickly as he thought that, I said no. Because our kids were 2 and 5. I felt like I was in the trenches of motherhood. We were basically roommates, and I couldn't envision in that moment, Tracy, I couldn't envision the idea that we would commit, that I would commit. He was totally committed, but that I would commit to something like this. And so I said no. I promptly got up out of bed because we were watching this in bed, and I went and put on this fabulous green avocado mask and was like,
well, she went into the bathroom. She comes out with that mask on because I was even in my head going, she's in the bathroom. Well, at least maybe tonight we can have some fun. Kids are already asleep. And then she comes out with this green avocado mask on. I'm like, you got to be kidding.
Not happening.
You
Not
got to be
happening.
kidding
Yeah,
me.
Avocado Mass says, yeah, there's nothing happening here tonight.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you got
You've been
that.
married long enough, you know.
You got that. But literally the next day, Tracy, I'll tell you, I had a basket full of laundry. I was in our garage, and it was literally a come to Jesus moment. I heard what I believe to be the voice of God saying, if you're not willing to try, your marriage is over. And that's a really confronting statement to hear rattling around in your head, that, you know, if you're not willing to put forth effort into this relationship where, you know, at that point in time, it got married in 96. So it'd been 12 years where I said, you know, I do to Tony, but now I was saying I don't, then I had to really face what my future might hold. And so Tony came home and I was like, all right, I'm in, let's do this thing. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Deer in the headlights. Cause I was like, having been rejected so many times prior to that in our marriage, I would just move on to the next thing because the hurt, the pain, I didn't want to dwell in it. And so I would just move on. And so when I came home that day from work and she said, let's do it. And then she goes, let's do that 60-day sex challenge. I was really a deer in the headlights because I was already moving forward. And then I had to face my own self and go, oh no, what's going to happen? Like, what if I can't perform? So all this sort of, not anxiety per se, but just this like, what if I can't hold up my end of the bargain to this challenge? And I started disqualifying myself. And then I stopped that and I just said, okay, we're going to do this. We sat down and we determined, what is this challenge going to look like for Tony and Alisa? And what we decided, it was going to be 60 days long. We weren't going to have sex if one of us was sick, if one of us was traveling, or if Alisa was on her period. And so over those 60 days, we grew closer together in our emotional intimacy, in our spiritual intimacy, our sexual intimacy, and we ended up completing 40 out of those 60 days.
Yeah, it was quite an adventure.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, I love the fact that you guys had the game plan. It's not that you're just going to jump and do it, but you sat down, you made some rules, you thought about it. I mean, you come to Jesus. Both of you came to Jesus in your own real way. One is,
Right.
man, I need to do this. This is going to be a challenge. While the other one was like, okay, this is now really going to happen. Woo, yeah, excited. But then, you know, and then the reality is, you know, being someone who's counseled a lot of people, that sex thing, that problem of, you know, putting on the mask or, you know, just being turned down over and over and over is a big issue. So this was massive. So 40 days out of the 60 days, did you feel like you won? Did you feel victorious after that? Did you feel like you needed more help? Did you try it again? What happened next?
Yeah, well, I think
Other than feeling tired.
well, we did take the next month off. We did
Yes.
take November of 2008 off because we did the September and October of 2008. But
Wait, you took it completely off, or you took it off of having sex, or off
I don't think we had sex, like,
podcasting?
just I think it was just sex that we kept.
Okay.
We hadn't started the podcast yet. The podcast would come after.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was victorious. It definitely was, because the shift happened. Here's the shift that happened, because a lot of people are listening and they're like, oh, they just had sex. And yes, sex was what allowed us to come together each and every day. And yet we began to make our marriage a priority again. We began to shift the mindset of, oh, this is what our marriage is going to be like for the next 40 years. And instead, in 60 days, our mindset shifted to, oh my gosh, this is what our marriage is going to be like for the next 40 years. Like, this is what we want to do. We want to keep each other at the top. God comes first, then each other, but it's a priority. We're going to engage one another. We're going to be intentional in our marriage. We're going to take action in areas in our marriage. And that's where I feel like the victory came for myself. And I'll let Alisa share where.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I was actually surprised, you know, about halfway through. I remember Tony and I were driving. I mean, our kids were little, so we're driving in a minivan going on date night. And I remember seeing the sunset. I can tell you exactly where we were in San Diego. And I remember looking over at Tony and thinking, I actually still like this guy, which sounds kind of like a silly statement for a wife to make when she's been married 11, 12 years. But we had been so distant in our marriage, and it had been so long since I had felt like, oh, I'm not just going through the motions saying I love you. Like, I actually like spending time with you. You're making me laugh again. We're talking about all these other things. And that's when we realized that, yes, the sex was the catalyst, but the wind was going, let's look at all of these other areas of our marriage and let's start doing something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the following year when we were asked to speak at our church's marriage retreat that everything else that became One Extraordinary Marriage got launched.
Yeah.
Well, that's just awesome. And I love that you gave context to the fact that you have a marriage podcast, but it starts with the reality that most marriages are having trouble in their sex life, in their communication. Everything breaks down, around that. And, men's desire and women's desire and needs are all different. And I just love that you guys have just taken this on head on. But not only taking on head on is that you keep referring to church. You keep referring to church. Now, this podcast is for all kinds of listeners, churchgoers, non-churchgoers. But I think it's really interesting because religion kind of gives you this idea that, religious people don't have sex. We're pious. We're missionary only, right? We have all these ideas. And the fact is that you guys are really just, putting the bullet in the gun and saying, hey, let's go ahead and kill this old cow, and let's start off with something. Well, not when I say old cow, the reference is not to a husband or a wife or anything, but it's an old dead cow religion, and we're going to destroy that. So you went from there, and how did the podcast start?
So we ended up speaking at this marriage retreat, and Alisa and I just shared our story. This is where we were. This is where we're at now. And after that, people just kept asking, hey, what's next? What's next? What's next? And Alisa and I looked at each other. I had another business that I was running. I was in the auto reconditioning world. Alisa was a stay-at-home mom doing direct sales. And we're like, we're good. Like, our marriage is, like, our life and where we're at, we're good. Like, people kept asking. And so that's when we began to put our foot into what back then was blogging. And we started with blogging, which was very painful. We had a coach who said, you know what, there's this thing called podcasting. And I was intrigued. I'm like, well, what is it? Because I wasn't even listening to podcasts at that point in time. And that would have been 2009.
Most people weren't listening to podcasts back
People
then.
didn't know what podcasts were in 2009. Yeah. And so he shared, it's like a radio show. And I'm like, that sounds cool. We can talk. And so that's what got the wheels going. I had somebody help us set it all up. We looked at our equipment for 3 months. And finally, Alisa said, are we doing something with this? Because that was right in the middle of the Great Recession, and we didn't have a lot of money. We'd gotten hit pretty hard. And I said, you know what, we are. And so that's when the week prior, obviously, to releasing that first episode, we sat in our garage here in San Diego. It was a cold winter day for San Diegans. And I remember us just sitting there across from each other and going, what are we going to talk about? We had probably about 10, 11 takes. And yet we finally just said, we're dropping this thing. And we dropped it, and we just kept doing it and kept recording each and every week. And we kept recording, and we didn't know if people were listening. We didn't know how they were listening. And then I remember one day getting an email from somebody in Alaska going, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. You're sharing things that need to be shared. Yeah. And that was where it all began. And we haven't stopped since.
Yeah. It's so interesting. We've told our origin story before, but every time I tell the story or I hear Tony talk about the story, it's like we go back there in a heartbeat, Tracy. You think about, everybody is somewhere, right? And what do you do in that place where you're at to say, you know what, maybe we can make a difference? Like, we started the podcast not knowing if people would ever listen. Now we're into tens of millions of downloads. We started it saying, if we could impact one married couple, it would just one couple, it would all be worth it.
And that is still our mission today.
Right.
Every single time before we get behind our microphones, Alisa and I go, who's the one couple we are going to touch? That is our mission, and it will continue to stay our mission. It doesn't matter if we have millions of listeners, wherever God takes us, wherever we go, it's still, how do we impact one couple? Each and every time we get behind our microphones and somebody's listening to this, they search it. We want to make sure that we're speaking right to them and that they can have the breakthrough in their marriage.
Man, that is so powerful. This is why I like talking to you. I mean, on camera, off camera, over a Chipotle, whatever we ate that day. I just love talking to you because you are so passionate about, the reality of life, but that, You have a message that can help one person, which means you can help a million people. If there's
Yeah.
someone listening right now, which I know that there is, you need to write that down, that if you can just do it consistently, like they said, and do it for one person in mind, that one person will become a million. Just keep doing it. That's what I love that. I love that. So how did you get to writing the book? Now, Alisa, I know that you're a coach,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you want to, if it came out of coaching. What was the introduction for you and Tony to write a book?
So the 6 Pillars of Intimacy is actually our 6th book. And
Okay.
when we started the 60-day sex challenge and just going through that experience, we started realizing that marriage is more than just one dimension, right? It's more than just great communication. It's more than just having sex regularly. And we started to see these different facets all the way back then in 2008 when we did the 60-day sex challenge. And literally since then, over these last 14 years that we've been growing our own marriage, looking at marriages, hearing from, we get so many emails, direct messages and things like that, hearing about other people's marriages. And yes, the hundreds of couples that I've coached, we started seeing, there's a framework that's missing. There's the structure that's missing, a way to unify couples. And that's really where the 6 Pillars of Intimacy came from. It was born out of the fact that a lot of people use the word intimacy and they mean sex, but you can't, like I say in the book, you can't have sex 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we've got to look at a marriage holistically to be able to say, how can we strengthen a relationship, and how can we look at it over the lifetime of a relationship and be able to do it as a team, and not just like, you need to do this for my marriage, you need to do this to make me happy, but instead say, we can do this. What can I do right now to make our marriage stronger?
I think it's beautiful because you're talking about doing it as a team. And that's one of the breakdowns that people have in their marriages. They stop being a team. They come together and promise to be a team, but then it's almost like the team starts to unravel when everyone starts to think about themselves. Okay, what I need, what I'm not getting. And then we start to unravel in these relationships. And then 25 years later, whatever the time frame is, they're no longer a team. Now you give 6 pillars. The first starts off with emotional, right?
Yeah.
And then physical, spiritual, financial, and the recreational. Wow, that's big. And then sexual. Let's talk about all of those if you want to break them down.
Yeah, the reason we start with emotional is because everything comes back to how the two of you communicate verbally and non-verbally. What does it look like to share those thoughts and feelings and desires? And what you're able to talk about and the skills that you're able to develop will actually impact how you talk about physical touch and finances and faith and what we're going to do together and sex. And what I really want to say, just as we're talking about these pillars from the get-go, is that creating a framework for your marriage, implementing the 6 pillars of intimacy, this is skill development.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like just, there are some people that are just blessed to do marriage well, and they've just got some, special marriage gene that the rest of you don't have. It's actually, wait a minute, let me take a look at where I need to develop skills and just get stronger in a particular area so that I can do this whole relationship better. So that really, I want people to be thinking, oh, well, they've just figured it out. No, we've just practiced a whole lot of times. And you just have to practice too.
Yeah. And what you see right now is Alisa and I being consistent for 14 years in our marriage, doing what we say we're going to do and what we share with the one family each and every week. Yeah. And so when we come to the next pillar, that's physical intimacy. That's your closeness and connection around physical touch, non-sexual physical touch. We really break this one up, Tracy, because a lot of people sort of get this gray thing is like, well, I'm physical. Well, there's also holding hand and cuddling and kissing and, doing those things that just keep you close to one another, hand on a knee, legs touching one another while you sit down close to one another. So physical intimacy is vitally important in a marriage, and it doesn't need to lead to sexual intimacy. It can. And yet there are many a times when you may just want to be right next to your wife and just holding her hand, or she wants to just have her arm around you with no intention of having sex.
Right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's really interesting because you're touching the nerve of what people use for, this is usually emotional, physical, spiritual, they all sound like they're not a team sport, right? That's all individual. My emotions, my physical, my relationship with God, but you're saying all of this is a team sport. All of this can come down to let's be a team in every one of these pillars.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes back to Genesis 2:24, right? Where it says, and the two shall become one. Right, that we stand up and couples will take each other, take the last name. There are all of these different unifying practices in a wedding ceremony. And then like we retreat after and we're like, yeah, that was good. I'm glad we had that special day, but you know what, now I'm going to do my own thing. And the fact of the matter is have Tony and I always been perfect in our marriage? No. Are we perfect today? No. Do we make a lot of mistakes? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we know two things for sure. We know divorce is off the table in our marriage, and we know that consistent action will always produce results. And so that's what, I think if more couples actually started getting into this place of saying, you know what can we do consistently? Not just when it makes me happy, not just when it's convenient, but what do I need to do day in and day out to make this relationship that I said was the most important? What can I do to make this actually a priority in my life?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. My wife and I, when we first met, we had first of all, divorce. She said to me, I said to her, I said, okay, there's a couple of rules, couple of things that we need to just get right up front. First of all, divorce is never to be mentioned. We're never to mention divorce. It's not even a subject that can jump in our mind. We've never mentioned, we just celebrated our 27th year. We never mentioned divorce. It's never been an issue. It's never been a thought. When you don't have that thought, it just doesn't, it stops a lot of other thoughts, right? You just can't go down other roads because it doesn't end in that. The second thing, what she said was really funny. She said, okay, that's fine. And I said, if you ever mention divorce, she's from Holland. I said, if you ever mention divorce, I'm going to pack your bags without saying anything, and I'm going to send you back to Holland. She goes, okay, that's fine. And then she says, if you ever hit me, physically hit me, then she's seen that in her background somewhere in her family. She goes, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you go to sleep. I'm wait till you go to sleep. I'm going to heat up red hot one of those iron pans, and I'm going to hit you in the face with the iron pan while you sleep. And everybody will see that little diamond on the bottom of it. How many, I got scared. I realized I was never going to, and it's not a part of my nature, but but what we did, we make fun of that one, but we created these always and nevers. Like my thing was, I always want to be greeted when I come home. When I walk in, I want everyone to pay attention to them walk in. That was one of my always. And then we have nevers, right? Which was one of those. And I think these 6 pillars leads us into those kinds of standards. And what you're talking about, these standards of life in your marriage that just kind of, kind of guidelines, and everyone can plan those, right? That's not something that just you did, like you said. It's skills that you developed.
Yeah. Right. And we've had thousands and thousands of couples read the book and go through it and look at the 6 pillars and start to take them on and go, okay, where are the cracks in our marriage? Financial intimacy. Do we have massive amounts of debt, and that's causing stress? So that's keeping us at bay from one another, from being physically intimate, or going and being recreationally intimate, going out on dates or activities. And so they can find the cracks, and then they can go, okay, well, what's our plan of attack now? We know where the crack is. We know we got debt, and we're going to come together as a team, and we're going to go, all right, we're going to go after it. And as we go after that one, we're going to strengthen the other ones. And so we've seen couples time and time again sharing, oh my gosh, this revealed something to us that we didn't know. And now we understand because we have the tools in our toolbox, in our marriage toolbox, to go after it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. It's outstanding. One of the things that I feel is really important for America, we can just talk about some America stuff for a second, is that America is the biggest problem with all of the things. And I'm going to make it sound simplified, but I believe that you, Tony and Alisa, are the answer to America. Because I believe the family breakdown in America is one of the problems with America, that we have the crime issues or whatever issues, all the issues that we can go to court and talk about. Or I believe it comes down to the fact that the family is broken. And I believe the family is broken down because that original covenant, the power of dominion that comes from a husband and a wife, is broken in a family. And I believe restoring marriage is the key. What do you guys think about that thought?
100%. I mean, I see it day in and day out coaching couples, what starts to happen when they're contemplating divorce, because unfortunately divorce is a word that's, thrown around probably as much as Google is, right? Couples are talking about it. It's so easy to allow that thought in, instead of saying, like, I remember my grandparents, did they have the happiest marriage? Probably not. But they were both so stubborn about the fact that this was their relationship. This was what they had chosen, and they, like, literally till death do them part. And what I want to say is, can we take that kind of that depression era, we're just going to hold on to things are not disposable, we're in this, can we take that mentality and bring it into 2022 and say, let's have that mentality, but let's resource ourselves. Let's not be miserable, but let's actually develop the skills. Let's learn what we don't know. Let's get plugged into community, so we're not doing this by ourselves, so that we can keep the family unit, we can keep marriages intact. I think a lot of marriages actually suffer because they're not in community, because they would much rather post about all of the dysfunctional things that their spouse does on social media when things go wrong, instead of saying, wait a minute, we need help. Let's not be ashamed of getting help. Let's actually say, you know what, it's just like if your 5-year-old's got a cold, you're going to take your kid to the doctor. Well, if your marriage is 5 years old and it's got problems, think of it as a kid and take it to a doctor, take it to a coach, take it to a therapist, and get the help that you need.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think that, doing marriage as a community is not something that people are talking about. I don't think that that's something that's coming out. And I think it's very important to do that. What are some of the ways you would, take it to a coach, take it to a therapist? That's an individual or getting help. But what are some of the communities? You have a community that you've built with the One Extraordinary Marriage community. I'm sure there's a community there. You have on Instagram, you are a part of building a community there. One Extraordinary Marriage. Give me some other thoughts and some other things for the people and what they can do with building community with their marriage.
Yeah, I think, online, like Tracy has said, and as you have said, Instagram, you can find us there at One Extraordinary Marriage. We also have a private Facebook group called the One Family Private Facebook Group. As you get to know who we are, you'll hear about us saying that. And that is a group of people who believe in marriage, who are there to support one another. And it is our goal and our desire to want to be there. And so we do what we call a Take Action Thursday. It's a live 20 to 30 minute each week. And we get there and we get to meet people and we get to talk to them. We get to learn where they're at and what's going on. And it's fun, but we also help them to meet others and to realize that, hey, you're not alone in this thing called marriage. No matter where you may be, from newlywed to 40 plus years married and beyond, there are people here for you. We do live events, so we're out there meeting people. There are others now that are doing small groups around the 6 pillars of intimacy. So it's community. How are we getting you around people in your community that allows you to go, I got to take off this mask.
Yeah.
Mask has been on too long.
Yeah.
I'm hurting inside. Our marriage is hurting. It's crumbling. Okay. We're not going to judge you for that. We're going to come alongside you and love you and go, it's okay. Like, we've been there. We know what it feels like. And yet you don't have to end your marriage because that's where you're at right now. How can we come alongside you, encourage you, bring hope to you, so that way you can go, okay, I have a vision now for my marriage. We have a vision for our marriage, and we're going to start taking the steps on this journey to having the extraordinary marriage we desire.
That's so rich. That's so rich. So, a couple more thoughts.
Yeah.
How do we get people connected to the Facebook group? If they connect with you through an event, or what's the best way to make that connection?
Oh yeah. If you want to jump in, you can go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/onefamily.
Okay.
That will take you right there. There is a form there that you have to fill out.
Few questions. We like to know you're married.
Yeah, we like to know that you're married and
safeguard for the community.
Right. And Alisa brings something up, safeguard for the community. We absolutely will not let you in unless you are married. And if we find people who are not married in the group, we'll remove them, because we take that responsibility on. We will remove posts where people are flaming other people. This is not acceptable. Like, people are going through real things, and you behind a screen just sort of going off isn't helpful. And so we'll let people know, and we take charge there. We just go, this is a place we want to be, and we want you to know that you can be here and you can take off your mask and not be ridiculed, not be blasted, but will be loved upon.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's outstanding. So you did we're running to the final here, but you did some things for singles. Anything you want to talk to a single right now? Just, I mean, they may be listening. When I was single, I listened to all kinds of marriage things. I came from a family where there was divorce after divorce after divorce, and I did not want to do the same thing. So I listened to a lot of marriage things. There may be a couple of singles listening here. What would you say to them?
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
Though? Tracy, thank you for sharing that. Some years ago, Alisa and I got an email from a young woman, and she was 16 back then. And she shared that she was listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. And I was like, in my head, I'm going, why is this 16-year-old listening? And as I read, and as Alisa and I read her email, she goes, my family is broken. My mom and dad are always yelling at each other. And you guys have become my mentors. Somebody I can listen to know that what my parents are going through isn't something I'm going to have to go through. And it really touched me to know that, hey, we're speaking into those lives as well.
Yeah. And what I would say, if you're single and you're hearing about, 6 pillars of intimacy, pick it up. Like Tracy was saying, we actually lead a small group at our church of single 20-somethings. And we went through the book with them last semester, and it was incredible to watch them evaluate each one of the 6 pillars, not just for where they are now, but for what, as a single person, what can you do now to set yourself up for success, not just in the relationships you currently have, but for the marriage that you desire. 5 of the 6 pillars, theoretically, you can do with anyone: emotional, physical, financial, spiritual, recreational. Save the sexual for your marriage.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say to that. Because it will actually save a lot of heartache if you just save that one for marriage. But understanding the 6 pillars, understanding what it looks like to go into marriage with a framework before you're married, the success stories that are coming out of couples that are reading this book prior to marriage, or even singles that are reading it and going into dating relationships with this understanding of what does it look like to be able to identify and address each one of these 6 pillars. This book is literally changing, what dating looks like and what marriage, early marriage looks like for couples.
Yeah.
That's just brilliant. I love it. I mean, you guys I keep bragging on you. I'm just very proud of you, to be your friend, proud to be a friend, and to do life together. This is going to help so many singles, because there is a lot of question. I mean, just the financial piece, moving into marriage, broken financially. I mean, to be single and get your financial piece handled, and you can save some trouble being in marriage, because a lot of marriages are still affected through the financial piece, challenges. And, the idea of, you have another one that I want to just give a little teaser to. I know you're not releasing it yet, but the empty nester, I mean, how many divorces happen because the kids have now gone and I don't know you anymore. And who are you? I can't believe, now I don't need you. Now the kids are right. What is that world like right now?
Well, there's actually a term for that. It's called gray divorce. And gray divorce. Yeah. It is the divorce that is happening.
We're graying.
Hi, sweetheart.
You guys are not divorcing. You guys are graying and loving. So that's great.
We are graying and loving.
Yeah, we're graying and loving.
But there is an epidemic of divorce in that like 20 to 30 year range
Mhm.
for exactly what you said. And I was just talking to a wife about this earlier this week. You know, you spend 20, 22 years raising children, being all focused on them, and then you launch them into the world, a successful launch, yay. And then you walk back into your house and you have no idea what to do with the silence. You have no idea who the person that sits down at the dining room table is anymore. The two of you can't remember the last time you had a conversation, you had sex, and you're like, you know what? Grass looks a whole lot greener over there. Maybe I'll go explore with that instead of saying, hold on. Like, and that's the vision for that next edition, the empty nester edition, is to say, let's equip you with an understanding of this so you can come back to your home and go, you know what? The best years aren't behind us. The best years for this marriage are in front of us. We're gonna be in this place of excitement and doing things together. And literally, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you could be having the best sex of your life in your 20, 30, 40 years of marriage. It doesn't have to stop after the honeymoon.
That's right.
Yeah. That's great. And you know, the fact is people, they find themselves there. They didn't plan to be there. They find themselves there. And what the 6 pillars is going to do is going to help a person plan their life in such a way so that they don't find themselves someplace where they didn't plan on arriving. And so you're helping people arrive to the proper place. So they'll find themselves as gray hair, chasing and pinching each other, running around the house and doing all that stuff, you know, what tools are we taking on vacation, right? I remember talking to you guys about a TV show. You guys like, okay, what do we bring? What toys are we bringing on vacation? Like, okay, this is great. This is a great TV show. Let's get this going. All right, so, but this is fun because the fact is you can have fun. Now I mean, because I don't think people have fun with each other anymore. I think they stop having fun. But you guys have fun. Every time I see you, you're smiling, you're laughing. How do you help people with that? Come on, let's just for 1 second. I know we're at the end, but I'm sucking everything I can out of you. I mean, people stop having fun somewhere in their marriage. They stop having fun somewhere. And of course, they say, well, if I have more sex, I'll have fun. But then, you know, holding hands should be fun. All the stuff that you mentioned earlier. 6 pillars, I should probably just say 6 pillars have more fun, right? What else?
I like that. I will go with that. But if it's been a while since you've had fun, you may actually have forgotten what is fun for you.
Right.
Yeah. So quick practical tip on how to make this happen. You each take out a sheet of paper. You write down the numbers. I'm going to make it super simple, super sweet. Write down the numbers 1 through 5. Husbands, write down 5 things that you would love to do, would think would be fun on a date night. You can only put sex on there once. I'm just saying that. Wives, you write down your 5 fun things that you'd like to do. You can only put sex on there once.
And this is, and truly, this is the one time we tell couples, be selfish. What do you want to do? Don't get into this mind game of like, what do I want to do that I know my spouse would want to do that I want to do? What do you want to do? If you want to go for a night of bowling or axe throwing, then just put that down.
Right. And so now you each have 5 ideas, right? You swap lists. And no, husbands, I've just given you 5 answers to take your wife out and go do something fun. She'll be thrilled. Yes, you gave her the list, but guess what? You've got all the answers. Pick one of them, put your own spin on it. Go out and just take her out on a date where she doesn't have to think about it. Wives, do the same thing with that list that you got from your husband.
Yeah.
And as a couple starts to get into doing things together, spending time together, that fun element, that relaxed element, that we can do things together element starts to come back into the marriage. And that's where they rediscover that connection.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it. I like just sitting down and being honest and saying, hey, this is what I want to do. This is fun to me. This is fun to you. Now let's work on the team aspect and make sure that we're all having fun. Laugh again. I mean, my wife and I, we laugh so much. That's probably our primary love language. If that was a love language, we just laugh all day, in which that makes our whole life really fun. And so we get to do that. So, you know, I just wanted to last thoughts. Any last thoughts before we wrap up? Anything? Normally I would say, here's the last question. The last question is surrounding, something you're not normally asked, but you're asked so many questions, so we couldn't pin down one. But maybe there's some last thoughts you want to give people as we begin to roll out.
You want me to go first? I was going to say, this is what we share on the One Extraordinary Marriage show all the time, and it always needs to be said. Be intentional and take action. And if it's in your marriage right now that you feel stuck and you look at your 6 pillars and you see a crack in one of them, where are you going to be intentional in that? And how are you going to take action? Mm-hmm. And it can never be said enough. And it's something that Alisa and I have to tell ourselves, even when we get into ruts and when we get into places where we see cracks in our own pillars, we're like, we need to be intentional in this area again, and we need to take action. And we need to sit down and we need to figure out what we're going to do because we want an extraordinary marriage. And so that's what I would share to anybody, wherever you may be. Where are you going to be intentional this week? Where are you going to take action? And then consistently, this is a big word, consistently do it over time.
And I would just add my own 2 cents. I would say, you know what? Don't buy the narrative that media wants to put out, that all medias are crap and it sucks to be married and you know what? You're better off single. There are a lot of amazing marriages out there and a lot of couples that are doing marriage really well. They may not be posting all over Instagram. They may probably because they're actually just living their best life. So go find those people, get to know them, learn what they do, and step into that place that says, you know what, there's nothing that says we can't have the extraordinary marriage too.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. I love it. Be intentional and take action. And then don't buy into the narrative. Don't buy into the lie. There's a lot of lying going on that, you know, because they're socialistic in the political climate in socialism and Marxism and communism is don't get married because it doesn't matter. It's like just go out and everybody just do what you love to do, what you want to do. But marriage is a staple of this world. We need it everywhere in the world. And you guys are helping people get it right, do it right. So Instagram, they're on Instagram. Make sure you check out their Instagram. Don't forget the book. Get the book, 6 Pillars of Intimacy. And you can go to sixpillarsofintimacy.com. Get this book, make it happen, and get there and connect. And then don't forget oneextraordinarymarriage.com. And then if you put /family or / at the end?
/one family. Yep.
/one family /one family at the end. Then you can get connected with that and build a community around your relationship, your marriage. And did I miss anything? And did I get it all right? We're all good?
Tracy, you're amazing. You got it all in there.
Thank you, man. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I just love what you're doing. You being out there and just speaking life into people's lives, man. Just thank you so much for allowing us the time to be with you here today.
Well, thank you. You guys, again, you were, you know, every time I'm speaking publicly in your area and you come in, you connect and you come to me, make sure I'm connected. How are you doing? You need anything? You know, make sure your wife knows that we say hello. You're always making that connection, always going the extra mile. And you truly love people with a deep intimacy. And so I appreciate it. And when I thought of bringing someone on to talk about relationships, you were the first. And so we look forward to, even as, you know, we get our TV show, right? We get our TV show locked in. The 6 Pillars of Intimacy television program show, whatever we're going to do. I'm looking forward to working with you because you're some of the easiest and funnest, if I can say funnest people to work with. So we look forward to it. How many of you enjoyed this today? This has been a great day. Love you guys, and stay there in the back one second before I want to talk to you before we leave here. But I'm going to just finish off. Well, this was incredible time talking to Tony and Alisa. You can see why they're my friends and why I wanted to have them here. Don't forget oneextraordinarymarriage.com. Go there now and pick up everything that they have. They have 6 books. I believe they said 6 books. This is just, I mean, what are the other books? We only talked about one book. This one book has 6 pillars. Can you imagine what the other books have? Go and get all their books. Listen to their podcast, do whatever you got to do, get your marriage on track. And even if you're not married as a single, I want you to know you can go and be prepared for that right person when they come. And let me tell you, one of the things I learned as a person who was researching marriage beforehand, it helps you identify who to talk to and who not to talk to when you're single. You want to get that wrong person out real quick. Don't waste any time with them and focus on the right one. And 6 Pillars of Intimacy is going to help you, as well as their other books. Don't forget, you can find them also on Instagram. Connect with them on Instagram. I'm sure that they're giving out detailed information every week on how to move forward. And then you know how to do it on the iTunes. Find Extraordinary Marriage on iTunes, Extraordinary Marriage Show on iTunes, and go for it. And then go to YouTube and make sure you connect with us, the Futurist Rant. The future is now. We have a lot of things to keep going forward on, and we're going to see the world as a better place. Almost sound like a Michael Jackson song, You and I. All right, so we'll talk to you soon. Next time, don't forget, the Futurist Rant is here to help you look forward and to get your perspective right as we step into this next season.